Hi, I'm Brian from Beyondware. Beyond Typicals 2.5 is available now, and with it, we can now offer cloud access as an add-on to your subscription. The cloud add-on allows you to stream Beyond Typicals through a web browser instead of relying on your own computer to run the program. Also in 2.5, we've made a number of improvements, including saving pause traffic in place, keyboard camera controls, and automatic backups. Let's check them out. Until now, the only way to use Beyond Typicals was to download and run the application locally from your desktop. Because the software provides high-quality 3D graphics and real-time animation, the computer that runs Beyond Typicals needs a strong GPU and other hardware specifications to optimally use the software. We know that not all potential Beyond Typicals users out there have a computer that meets these requirements, so we've developed a cloud-based version of the software that those folks can access via a web browser. Instead of downloading the program and running it from your computer, you have the option to essentially rent the use of our virtual devices and stream Beyond Typicals over your internet connection. BT Cloud allows users to avoid hardware upgrades and other IT hurdles that might come with downloading Beyond Typicals to your device. With cloud access, you also get immediate access to our most up-to-date version, and this also gives Mac users an option to use Beyond Typicals. After you purchase the add-on, a unique hyperlink is available in your Beyondware.com account for you to access BT Cloud. We have a separate video on our website with more detail about this optional add-on, so if you're interested, head to beyondware.com/btcloud for more info. By popular demand, we have now added in saving paused traffic in your working sessions. This is a very important addition, but subtle. But those that have asked for this, it means a lot to them. They're very concerned with the consistency of their visualization. They want to be able to come back into a file and see the traffic paused in place where they left it. So thank you to all of that feedback. This is something I'm really excited about adding because I do know how important this is for a lot of our users. I've actually got two sessions open. I've got Beyond Typicals 2.4 here. Let's go ahead and make that background a little bit gray, just to show the difference between 2.4 and the new 2.5 where you can save traffic in place. Pausing traffic can be done a couple different ways. I can pause on a lane-by-lane basis. So again, those working for some nice consistency with what they're putting into their visualization. You can wait for that right mix of the vehicles and pause those on a lane-by-lane basis. That includes the people on sidewalks or people in bike lanes. But basically, I can pause all that traffic a couple of different ways. What happens in 2.4 is if you were to pause that traffic, then the next time you return to this file, whether I save and close or even move to a different phase in the working file, that traffic is now gone. So I've basically just duplicated that phase, and by navigating between this default and default point one, that traffic is still on. It's just all those lanes are paused. And it's because all of those vehicles were just off screen, just outside that clipping boundary, waiting to unpause to drive into the model. So in version 2.5, we've now added in the position of those vehicles is something that is savable. So when I go ahead into phasing here, I can create a new phase, or I can duplicate this one. Basically, if I go to a new phase and head back, I'm seeing that traffic in place. If I duplicate the phase, let's go ahead and delete that new phase. I've now got a duplicate of that model with that traffic relatively in the same position. So if I save and close this file and open it back up, the work that I put into getting that right vehicular mix, or that set of people on the sidewalk, all of that is now saved in place. And when you load it up next time or navigate between phases, you'll be able to restore a session with all of those in the same location. We've added some striping updates in version 2.5, just meant to make striping a little bit easier and a little more customizable for our users. So I've just got a pretty generic model here with just those plain white skip dash stripes. I'll go to the section hierarchy to show that when you select a stripe now, and you can also do this by either clicking on the stripe or clicking on the section next to it and either using tab, shift tab, or the left or right arrows to go over and select those. But right away, you might see that we've got these color shortcuts. So just for some of the most common lane striping colors, we've folded in a couple of quick shortcuts to help you get a consistent and quick color to change to either a pure yellow, which is a red and green value of 1 with blue of 0, or somewhere more of like an orangish where we've got the red at 1 and green at 0.5 with blue at 0. So you can use those shortcuts to really quickly get your double yellow striping into your typical sections. And again, you can quickly change that to double yellow by changing the spacing to 0 and engaging double striping. Otherwise, we made a couple of other edits to stripes. I'll show it on this section here. Basically, we've increased the maximum stripe length from 10 feet up to 15, just to give a little bit longer stripe option there. Also, we've decreased the stripe width minimum. So this used to be a minimum of 6 inches. Now you can knock that down to as little as 4 inches. So you can do that with the double yellow as well. If you're looking for a little bit more accuracy in your jurisdiction's striping standards. I'm really excited about this next one. We've added an auto backup function to Beyond Typicals 2.5. So if you're running the most up-to-date version of Beyond Typicals, Beyond Typicals will save a backup and restore point of your current working session on a regular interval. By default, we've turned this on for you and set the frequency to 15 minutes, but this is something you can change by going to the settings menu, finding the auto backup pull down, and changing that frequency. You can do something up to 3 hours, down to 1 minute, or just turn it off if you don't want it to operate. Essentially, this is not an auto save function. This is not automatically overwriting your working file. What this is doing is creating a backup as a separate file that you can then restore in case you do lose work, whether it's a power outage or your Beyond Typicals crashes, or maybe you just quit without saving. This is running in the background on a frequency that you can control that's creating a separate file for you to restore from. I'll show this in action. Basically, if you are running a brand new file that you haven't saved yet, this needs to go somewhere and have a file name. So by default, in that case, without any file location or save name, this is going to put this in your documents folder. So we'll watch this count down to 0, and then we'll see a new file pop up in my documents folder. And there it is. So by default, that unsaved file is just going to get a timestamp as its save name, and it's creating a btip.t file. If I did want to restore this, what I could do is take this file and change that file extension to a btip file. So I can just delete that t and press enter. Windows is going to prompt if I want to make sure that I want to change that file name, so I can click yes. And now I can restore this by loading that file. So what I'm going to do in my working session is just change that background to red and move the camera a little bit so there's a little more stark difference between the two. But I can go to File, Load, go find that Documents folder and take that file that I've changed from a btip.t to a btip file and load that up. And now I've got that as a recoverable version of the model that I was modeling. If I do save this somewhere, so I'm going to save this into a folder and give it a file name. Let's say Blue Bridge. I'm going to save. And now that auto backup function is going to create a file name in that folder of the saved folder. So I can go to testing auto backup, and it's going to create a backup btip.t file with the active file name. So when this counts down to 0 seconds, it's going to create Blue Bridge btip.t in this working folder. There we go. So it counted down to 0. Now I've got a Blue Bridge btip.t file that I can recover by changing that file path extension to a btip file. I'm not going to do that just since I have a file of the same name, but basically this is giving you the opportunity to recover any lost work. So this is a really great feature. One thing I want to highlight here is on the next backup, this isn't going to create another version of this. This is just going to keep overwriting that btipt file. So again, it's not going to populate your folder with a lot of different backup versions. This is just going to keep overwriting that backup file as a recover point if you ever need it for your working session. So I've got a date modified of 1114. Now that that counts down, you'll see that changes to 1115. So it's continuously updating that backup file. Just as a point of clarification, the desktop version of Beyond Typicals is called Auto Backup. That's because it's creating a restore point as a separate file with a different file extension. However, our cloud version, which has a very similar function, is called Auto Save, and that's because it's creating actual btip files and downloading them to your downloads folder. Those aren't overwriting your files. You're getting a new btip file every time that auto saves, but that's just the difference in the nomenclature between the auto backup, which is creating a different file type, in contrast to the auto save of the cloud version. We've also added in some new ways to move your camera around in Beyond Typicals. Until now, the easiest way to do it was to pan your camera around by clicking and holding your middle mouse wheel, and rotating your camera by clicking and holding your right mouse button. We enhanced this a little bit in version 2.4 by giving you these camera settings to change incrementally the pan position with X and Y changes. You can click and hold on these numbers and move those left and right, or you could type in a specific value if you wanted to do it that way. You could also individually adjust the rotation of the camera with a pitch angle and a yaw angle. So until now, those were your ways of doing it, but we've added in 2.5 some keyboard camera controls as well to maybe help you move that camera around. To pan the camera, you can use W, A, S, and D, or control with your arrows. So moving the camera up is a W or a control up. Moving it left is an A or control left. Moving it down is an S or control down. And moving it right is D or control right. And then rotating your camera is a combination of shift with your arrows. So a shift up will rotate the camera up, shift down will rotate it down, shift left will rotate it left, and shift right will rotate it right. And as I do that, you can see how those pitch and yaw angles and XY coordinates are changing as I use my keyboard to move that camera in just distinct directions and rotate just pitch and yaw using the keyboard. This should really help with photo compositing. Again, giving you some more options to get that camera into position, which should really help out with your camera match during photo compositing. In the environment settings, you'll see we have a couple of new options here in version 2.5. One is a cloud density spin bar, which allows you to increase or decrease the amount or density of clouds in the sky. We also have a cloud height spin bar, which lets you move the bottom elevation of those clouds higher or lower in your model. This might be a little on the nose for an update that includes cloud access, but these sliders can help you fine-tune your background a little further to get just the right look for the backdrop of your visualization. For our pro users, we've added imported asset retexturing into 2.5. So those who are importing their own OBJ or FBX files into Beyond Typicals, you now have a way to retexture the surface of those imported assets. In this example project, you'll see here I've got this overpass structure. That is an asset that is not included in Beyond Typicals. It's an imported asset as an FBX file. In the Imported Asset tab, you're able to go find and edit an asset that's already been imported. The new feature here is this texture customization pull down, and you'll see a list of all the object's various surfaces and texture assignments. I can go in and start making changes to these. I can either add a tint to a surface. You'll see this surface number 1 here is actually the stripe on the left side of the bridge. So that has its own texture, and I can go in and make changes to the hue of that surface using the color wheel. I'll skip to texture 4 here. This is basically the pavement between the outer stripes. It might take some trial and error to figure out which surface you're editing, but sometimes changing the hue can help you isolate which surface you're editing. But instead of adding tint, you can also change the texture surface to one of our 40 plus photorealistic textures in Beyond Typicals. You can go in and use one of our concretes or brick pavers or other surface textures we've got in the software as your imported asset surface texture. I can also change the tint of those as well. If you have an image that can serve as the surface texture of an imported asset, you're able to import that image as well. In this folder, I've got a few different surface textures on my computer. I'll pull in this PNG file. You can also use a JPEG, but we'll just add this wood floor texture so that you can see that along the bridge barrier, how I've retextured that with my own image that isn't in Beyond Typicals. Also, I can add hue to that surface by changing the color wheel to further change the surface appearance. With that advanced pull down, I can adjust the scale of the texture. I can raise the scale to make that image smaller and finer, or I can reduce that scale to make it larger. I can also rotate the texture. So if you're getting specific about the directionality of wood planks or bricks or something similar, you can add a rotation factor to that surface texture as well. When you're done, you can go ahead and hit apply at the bottom, and now that imported asset should be updated with all those surface texture changes. So for any workflows that resulted in importing assets that might have been textureless, if they have those surfaces present, you can reassign them either with the textures built into Beyond Typicals or import and refine your own. So that about does it for the major updates included in Beyond Typicals version 2.5. If you'd like any more information about our cloud add-on option or have any follow-up questions about this version update, you can send me an email at brian@beyondware.com or follow the Contact Us link in the video description. Thanks for watching.